As a cloud and DevOps engineer, whether you are a beginner or a professional, there are some essential tools that you need to install on your computer. And in this guide, I will show you how to install them, as well as some best practices you must understand and follow. The first software we need to install is called Homebrew, which is a package manager designed for Mac computers. When you install Homebrew on your computer, you can easily use it to install and configure other software packages on your computer. As you will see in the coming lectures, we will use Homebrew to install softwares like Terraform, Docker, and Git on our computer. To install Homebrew on your computer, open Google, and in the Google search box, type Homebrew. Once you have typed Homebrew in the search box, press enter. Under your Google search results, the URL is brew.sh. Select Homebrew, and it will bring you to this Homebrew page. The first thing we have to do is install Homebrew on our computer, and the command to install Homebrew is this command. The next thing I want you to do is click this box to copy this command. Once you have copied the command, open the terminal on your computer. To open the terminal on your computer, press Command and the spacebar key. Then type terminal in the search box. Once you type terminal, select it and press the return key. Once you open the terminal, paste the command you copied in there. I'm going to right click and paste the command in here. Once you've pasted the command, press the return key. If you have a password on your computer, it is going to ask you for the password. Enter the password in here. Please note that when you enter the password, it is not going to show anything on the screen. Once you have entered the password, press the return key. It is now installing Homebrew. Press the return key again. And there you go. It is now installing Homebrew, and we will give it some time to finish installing it. After waiting a couple of minutes, it has installed Homebrew on my computer. Please note that I fast forward this video during the installation process, and it will take some time to install Homebrew on your computer. Once Homebrew has been successfully installed on your computer, you should see this output here. This is how we install Homebrew on our computer, and now that Homebrew is installed, we can use it to install other softwares on our computer. The next software we will install is Item 2. Item 2 is an open source terminal for Mac. Instead of using the default terminal for your Mac computer, it is better to use Item 2. To install Item 2 on our computer, come to the Homebrew website, and this is the URL. Once you are on the website, type Item 2 in the search box. Then select Item 2. Once you select Item 2, you'll see the name Item 2 here. On this page, click this box to copy the command to install Item 2 on your computer. Once you have copied the command, open the terminal on your computer. Once you open the terminal on your computer, paste the command and press the return key. And there you go. We are now installing Item 2 on our computer, and we will give it some time to finish installing it. And there you go. We have successfully installed Item 2 on our computer. The next thing I want you to do is close your terminal. Once you have closed your terminal, if your terminal is still showing down here, right-click on it and click Quit. Then right-click on it again, select Options, and select Remove from Dock. Instead of using the terminal that comes with your computer, we will use Item 2. And to open Item 2, press Command and the spacebar key. Then type Item 2 in the search box. Select Item and press the return key. Click Open. Once you have opened the Item terminal, the next thing I want you to do is dock it. right click here and select Options, then click Keep in Dock. Once you have docked your item to terminal, the next thing you can do is increase your font. To increase your font, press the Command key and the plus key together, and that will increase your font. If you want to decrease it, press the Command key and the minus key. The last thing I want us to do is change the shell from zsh to bash. To change it, run this command. Once you enter the command, press the return key on your computer to run it. Then it is going to ask you for the password for your computer. Enter the password in here. Once you've entered the password, press the return key. Once you have run the command, close the terminal. To close the terminal, right-click here and select Quit. Then click OK. Open the terminal again. Once you open the terminal, you will see that you have successfully changed your shell to bash. This is all we need to do in this lecture to install Item 2 on our computer. Next, we will install Visual Studio Code, which is a text editor you can use for writing scripts and code. To install Visual Studio Code on your computer, on the Homebrew's website, type Visual Studio Code in the search box. And select Visual Studio Code here. On this page, this is the command to install Visual Studio Code on your computer. Click this box to copy it. Once you have copied it, open the terminal on your computer and paste the command in there. Then press the return key. It is now installing Visual Studio Code on my computer, and I will give it some time to finish installing it. And there you go. I have successfully installed Visual Studio Code on my computer. The next thing I'm going to do is open it. I'm going to close the terminal and press Command and the spacebar key on my computer. Type Visual Studio Code in the search box. Once you type Visual Studio Code, you'll see it here. Select it and press Open. Once you have opened Visual Studio Code, the next thing I want you to do is dock it. I'm going to right-click on the logo here and select Options and click Keep in Dock. Once you have docked it, on this page, you can also select your preference. I like the dark one, so I'm going to select it. Once you have selected your preference, you can either complete the rest of the setup steps or you can close this page. I'm going to close it. The next thing you can do is increase your font. To increase your font, select Code and select Preferences and click Settings. On this page, you can increase your font here. I'm going to change it to 16. Once you have increased your font, you can close this page by clicking this X button. This is all we need to do to install Visual Studio Code on our computer. The next software we will install is Git, which you can use to clone GitHub repositories on your computer. To install Git on your computer, on the Homebrew's website, type Git in the search box. And you should see Git here, select it. On this page, this is the command you will use to install Git on your computer. Click this box to copy it. Once you've copied it, open the terminal on your computer. Then paste the command in there and press Enter. It is now installing Git on our computer, and we'll give it some time to finish installing it. And there you go. We have successfully installed Git on our computer using Homebrew. To verify that Git has been successfully installed on our computer, type git space -- version and press Enter. And there you go. When you type the command and press Enter, if you get this output, this means that Git has been successfully installed on your computer. Once you have confirmed that Git is successfully installed on your computer, the next thing we will do is run these commands to configure our Git username and email. Before you run these commands, first I want you to update your first name and last name on the first command, and on the second command, update your email. I'm going to update the first command and enter my first name and last name. And on the second command, I'm going to update it to my email address. Once you have updated these commands, first we are going to copy the first command and we are going to run it in the terminal. Once you paste the command, press enter. Then go back to your command, select the second command, copy it, and go back to the terminal, paste it in there, and press enter. This is all you need to do to configure your Git username and email. The next software we will install is Terraform. Terraform is an infrastructure as code tool that you can use to create resources and build cloud infrastructures. On the Homebrew website, in this search box, type Terraform. And select Terraform here. On this page, this is the command to install Terraform, and click this box to copy it. Once you have copied the command, open your terminal and paste the command in there. Once you paste the command, press the return key. We have successfully installed Terraform on our computer. The next thing we are going to do is verify that Terraform was successfully installed. The command to verify that Terraform was successfully installed is terraform -- version. Type this command and press the return key. And there you go. When you press the return key, if you get this output, it means that Terraform was successfully installed on your computer. This is all we need to do in this lecture. Next, I will show you how to check if virtualization is enabled on your Mac computer. Virtualization is usually enabled on a Mac computer by default, and it must be enabled for Docker to run successfully on your computer. To verify that virtualization is enabled on your computer, all you have to do is run this command in your terminal. Once you run this command, if you see vmx or svm in the output, this means that virtualization is enabled on your computer. I have included this command in this video's description. So let's copy this command. Once you copy it, open the terminal on your computer, paste the command in there, press enter. Once you run the command, remember we want to check the output for either vmx or svm. You can see in my output there is vmx here. This means that virtualization is enabled on my computer. Virtualization is usually enabled on Mac computers by default. The next software you should install on your computer is Docker. Docker is a tool for packaging applications, and you will use Docker to build container images. To install Docker on our computer, the first thing we have to do is look for the Docker documentation. So in Google, let's look for the documentation to download Docker. I'm going to type Docker download Mac. Once I type Docker download Mac, I'll press the return key. Under the Google search results, this is the Docker documentation to install Docker Desktop on a Mac computer. I'm going to select it. And I will also leave a link to this documentation in this video's description. On this page, you will see the two options to install Docker on your computer based on your Mac settings. Just in case if you don't know whether your Mac is Apple Silicon or Intel chip, the best way to find it is select the Apple logo up here and select about this Mac. This is going to open the information about your Mac computer. Under processor, if you see Intel here, that means that you need to download this version of Docker Desktop on your computer, and it will be the one with Docker Desktop for Mac with Intel chip. But if you see Apple chip M1 here, that means that your Mac is Apple Silicon and you will need to download this version of Docker Desktop. So here, since my computer is Intel, I'm going to click this button. And there you go. It is now downloading the Docker Desktop on my computer, and you can see it downloading here. I'm going to give it some time to finish downloading it. Once the Docker executable file has been downloaded, I'm going to click this folder to go into that directory. Then once I'm in that directory, you can see the file here. It is docker.dmg. I'm going to double click it to start the installation. Once you double click on the file, it is going to open this setting, and all it wants you to do is click on this Docker file and drag it into this application folder. Once you drag it there, drop it in there, and it will start installing Docker on your computer. We'll give it some time to finish installing it. Docker has been successfully installed on my computer. To open Docker on my computer, I can double click on the icon here, or if you want to search for it, I'm going to close this, and I'm also going to close this, and I'm also going to close this. Then press Command and the spacebar key on your computer and type Docker. Once you type Docker in the search box, you should see Docker here. Click it to open it. And there you go. It is now opening Docker on my computer. I'll give it some time to open it. When you get this option, click Open. On this page, click Accept. And on this page, I'm going to use the recommended settings and click Finish. If you get this setting, enter the password for your computer. Once you have entered the password for your computer, click OK. On this page, if you don't have a Docker account, you can sign up for an account. And if you already have an account, you can sign in here. We already created a Docker Hub account in the previous lecture, so we will use that account to sign in. So click Sign In and enter your username here. Once you enter your username, click Continue. Then enter your password. Once you enter your password, click Continue. Once you have successfully signed into your Docker Hub account, it is going to give you this option that allows you to open the Docker Desktop. So click Open Docker, and it is going to bring you back to the Docker page. Here, it is asking you for your role. You can select this drop down and select your role. Here, I'm going to click Student. For the next question, what will you use Docker for? I'm going to use it to deploy applications and click Continue. We have successfully installed Docker on our Mac computer, and Docker is currently running. Make sure that the color here is green and it says the engine is running. This is all we need to do in this lecture to install Docker on our computer. The next tool you should install on your computer is the Kubernetes Command Line, which you will use to run commands against your Kubernetes cluster to manage it. This is the Kubernetes documentation to install the Kubernetes Command Line on Mac. And I have included the link to this documentation in this video's description. According to this documentation, if you have already installed Homebrew on your computer, you can run this command to install the Kubernetes command line on your Mac computer. Since we have installed Homebrew on our computer, we will use it to install the Kubernetes command line. According to this documentation, you can either run this command or this command. I'm going to copy the first command. Once you copy it, open the terminal on your computer. Once you open the terminal, paste the command in there and press enter. We have successfully installed the Kubernetes command line on our computer. The next thing we can do is verify that it was successfully installed. And according to this documentation, we can run this command to test that the version we installed is up to date. So I'm going to copy this command. Once you copy it, go back to your terminal and paste it in there. Then press enter. When you run that command, if you get this output, this means that you have successfully installed the Kubernetes command line on your Mac computer. The next tool you should install on your computer is the EKS Command Line, which you will use to run command against your EKS cluster to manage it. This is the AWS documentation to install the EKS Command Line tool on your Mac computer using Homebrew. And I have included a link to this documentation in this video's description. According to this documentation, to install the EKS Command Line tool using Homebrew, the first thing you have to do is install Homebrew on your computer. And we have already installed Homebrew on our computer, so we don't have to run the first command. Once you have installed Homebrew on your computer by running this command, which we have already done, we are going to run the second command to install the Weaveworks Homebrew tab. So I want you to copy this command by clicking this box. Once you have copied the command, open your Mac terminal and paste that command in there. Once you paste the command, press enter. We have successfully installed Weaveworks. Next, let's go back to the documentation. And we are going to run the next command to install the EKS command line tool. To install it, we are going to copy this command. And once you copy the command, go back to your terminal and paste it in your terminal. Then press enter. It is now installing the EKS command line tool, and we will give it some time to finish installing it. We have successfully installed the EKS command line tool on our Mac computer. Next, let's go back to the documentation and scroll down. The last command we are going to run is the command we are going to use to verify that we have successfully installed it. So copy this command. Once you copy it, go back to your terminal, and I'm going to paste it here. Once you paste the command, press enter. When you run the command, if you get this output, this means that you have successfully installed the EKS command line tool on your Mac computer. The next tool you should install on your computer is the AWS Command Line tool. You will use the AWS Command Line to interact with your AWS environment and create resources programmatically. To install AWS CLI, open Google, and in Google, search for Install AWS CLI Brew. Type it like this. Once you type Install AWS CLI Brew, press enter. I always search for the documentation this way because somehow when I type AWS CLI in Homebrew, it doesn't show up. Once you have searched for Install AWS CLI Brew, you should see this documentation that says AWS CLI Homebrew selected. On this page, this is the command to install the AWS CLI on your computer using Homebrew. The command is brew install AWS CLI. We are going to click this box to copy it. I will also leave a copy of this command in this video's description. Once you have copied the command, open the terminal on your computer and paste the command in there. Once you paste the command, press enter. It is now installing AWS CLI on my computer, and I will give it some time to finish installing it. And there you go. We have successfully installed AWS CLI on our computer. To verify that AWS CLI was successfully installed, type AWS space -- version. Once you type this command, press enter. When you type this command, if you get this output, This means that AWS CLI was successfully installed on your computer. The next thing you need to understand is how to configure an IAM user's access key on your computer to programmatically create resources in your AWS account. To configure the IAM user's credentials on your computer, open the terminal. Once you have opened the terminal, we will run this command to configure the IAM user's credentials. The command is AWS configure. Once you type AWS configure, press enter. The first thing it is going to ask you is the access key ID of your IAM user. So open the CSV file we downloaded and copy the access key ID of your IAM user here. Once you copy it, go back to your terminal and paste it in here. Once you paste it, press enter. Next, it is going to ask you for the AWS secret access key. So let's go back to our CSV file and let's select the secret access key here. Copy it. Then go back to your terminal and paste it here. Once you paste it, press enter. The next value it is going to ask you is the default region name. For this project, I will be using the US East 1 region. So whatever region you are using, enter the value here. I'm going to type US East 1. Once you have entered the value of your region, press enter. And for the default output format, we are not going to enter anything. Press enter. And there you go. This is how we configure our IAM user's access key ID and secret access key on our computer. As a takeaway from this lecture, I want you to understand that anytime you run the AWS configure command on your computer and you enter your user's access key ID and secret access key and the region, what AWS is doing is AWS is creating two files on your computer and it is storing your credentials in those files. Another thing I want you to know is that that file will be stored in the .aws folder in your home directory. So currently I am in my home directory, but just to make sure that you are in the home directory, I want you to type the cd command and press enter. This will bring you to your home directory. Then I want you to type ls space -a and press enter. Typing ls -a will list all the files and folder in your home directory, including the hidden ones. So if you look here on my screen, you can see that AWS has created a folder that is named .aws. That is one thing I want you to note. When you run the AWS configure command on your computer and you enter your access key ID and secret access key, AWS will create this .aws folder in the home directory on your Mac computer, and in this folder, that is where AWS will store the credentials. So now that we have verified that this folder is there, I want you to clear your screen. Type clear. The next thing we will do is change our directory into the .aws directory. To change our directory into that directory, we are going to type cd space .aws. So when you type part of the name, if you press the tab key, the shell prompt will auto-complete it for you. Press the return key. Now you can see that we have changed our directory into the .aws directory. In this directory, if we type ls and press enter, you will see two files in there, the config file and the credentials file. In this file is where AWS has stored the credentials you entered when you ran the AWS configure command. So first, let's look at the config file. To see what is in the config file, the command is cat and the name of the file. The name of the file is config. So type config. Remember, when you type part of the name of a file in the directory you are in, if you press the tab key, the shell prompt will complete it for you, and press the return key. You can see in the config file, AWS has created a user called default, and under default, it has stored the region we entered when we configured our credentials. Next, let's check the content of the credentials file. To check the content of the credentials file, we are going to type cat and the name of the file. The name of the file is credentials, so type CRE. Once you type CRE, press the tab key and it is going to auto-complete it for you. Then press the return key. You can see in the credentials file, AWS has created a default, which is the same as this. And for that default, it has entered your user's access key ID and secret access key. This is an important information that I want you to note. And the takeaway for this lecture is that when you run the AWS configure command on your computer and you enter your user's access key ID and secret access key, what AWS is doing is it is creating a .aws folder in the home directory on your computer, and in that folder, it is creating two files, config and credentials. And in those files, AWS will store the credentials you configured on your computer. The next important thing you must know is how to generate key pairs on your computer, because you will need the key pair to clone your private GitHub repositories. To start, the first thing I want you to do is open the terminal. Once you have opened the terminal, type this command, and I have also included the command in this video's description. The command is ssh-keygen. The T stands for type, and the type is RSA, and the B stands for byte, and the byte is 2048. Once you have typed the command, press the return key. When you press the return key, it is telling you that it is going to generate a public and private key pair, and it is going to save the key pair in this directory on your computer. So what you have to do here is press enter. If you want to enter a passphrase for your key pair, you will enter it here, but we will not enter a passphrase. Press enter again. Then press enter again. We have successfully generated the key pair. One thing I want you to note is when we create a key pair, two keys will be generated, a public and a private key. And here it is telling you where the public and the private keys are saved on your computer. Usually when you create the key pair, it is going to save the key pair in the .ssh directory in your home directory, and in that directory you are going to find two key files, an id_rsa and id_rsa.pub. To check this key pair in the home directory on our computer, first I want you to type cd and press enter. This is going to take you back to the home directory on your computer, just in case if you are not on the home directory. Then remember, in your home directory, there will be another directory called .ssh. So here, we are going to change our directory into the .ssh directory. Type cd space .ssh. When you start to type part of the name, if you press the tab key, it is going to auto-complete it for you and press enter. And there you go. We have changed our directory into the .ssh directory. Once you have changed your directory into the .ssh directory, you should have your key pairs in there, the id_rsa and the id_rsa.pub. To check it, let's type ls and press enter. And there you go. In the .ssh directory, we have two key pairs in there, the id_rsa and the id_rsa.pub. The key that is named id_rsa.pub, that is your public key, and the key that is named id_rsa, that is your private key. Once you understand how to generate key pairs on your computer, the next thing you should understand is how to add the content of your public key into GitHub to clone the private repositories using SSH. To add the content of your public key pair in your GitHub repository, the first thing we have to do is print the content of our key pair. To print the content of our key pair, make sure you go into your .ssh directory where your key pair is in. Remember that your public key pair is in your .ssh directory, as we saw in the last lecture. And just to show you again how to get to your .ssh directory, I'm going to clear the screen. The first command I want you to type is cd, and that is going to bring you to your home directory. Once you are on your home directory, type cd space .ssh. Once you type part of the name, press the tab key and press enter. That is going to change your directory into the .ssh directory. Once you have changed your directory into the .ssh directory, if you type ls and press enter, you will see your key pairs in there, id_rsa and id_rsa.pub. Remember that we learned in the last lecture that the key that is named id_rsa.pub, that is our public key. So to print the content of this key, we are going to type cat space and the name of the key. The name of the key is id_rsa.pub. Once you type cat and the name of the public key, press enter. This is going to print the content of the key pair. The next thing I want you to do is select everything starting from the SSH all the way to local. Once you select everything like this, right click to copy it. Once you have copied the content of the key pair, go to your GitHub account. In your GitHub account, select your profile logo up here and select settings. On the settings page, select SSH and GPG keys. On this page, under SSH keys, click New SSH key. Then under title, give it a name. The name can be anything. I'm going to call it my public key. Once you have entered the name, under key, paste the content of the public key you copied there. Once you have pasted the content of your public key, click Add SSH key. We have successfully added the content of our public key in our GitHub account. The next software you should install on your computer is Helm. Helm is a package manager for Kubernetes, and you will need this software to install various components on your Kubernetes cluster when you work on your Kubernetes project. This is the documentation to install Helm on our computer, and I have included the link to this documentation in this video's description. According to this documentation, we can use Homebrew to install Helm on our Mac computer. So all we have to do is copy this command here. Once you have copied the command, open your terminal and paste the command in there. Then press enter. We have successfully installed Helm on our computer. These are some of the important tools that a DevOps engineer should install on their computer, as well as practices that you should understand. I also understand that there may be more tools you could install that were not covered in this video, and I am curious to know what tools or practices you use as a DevOps engineer that I did not mention. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.